Do you share the same objectives? Does the U.S. and Israel share the same objectives in outcomes when it comes to Iran? Or are there more things that Israel would like to see?
The level of collaboration between Israel and the United States is unprecedented on every level. The Prime Minister and the President speak frequently. The chiefs of staff speak frequently, several times a day. And our pilots are meeting over the skies on the way to Iran and fighting wing to wing, shoulder to shoulder. In terms of the objectives, I think that they're very clear. We cannot have, the world cannot have a regime in Tehran which tries to attain a nuclear weapon. We see these ballistic missiles raining into all of our neighbors right now, crashing into hotels, into airports, into civilian buildings. Imagine for one moment that they had a nuclear warhead on these ballistic missiles. They'd use them. That's what we've been saying for many years. This operation is intended to eliminate the possibility that there'll be a regime that will use ballistic missiles, that will develop ballistic missiles with a malign intent, that will try to enrich uranium, and that will export terror through their proxies around the region. The potential here, once Iran is defeated, once this regime is defeated, is for an expansion of peace and Abraham Accords throughout the region.
I know that the U.S. and Israel have been working in concert militarily and with regard to intelligence at just about every turn here, but U.S. officials have gone out of their way to point out that Israel conducted the strike against the Ayatollah and his lieutenants who were meeting last weekend. Why is that?
Well, what we've achieved by cutting off the head of the snake, the leadership, in the first 40 seconds, we took out 40 of the leaders, is because the cracks in the system are now beginning to be apparent to everyone. This kind of wild firing of the missiles is a result of the fact that there is not a consistent chain of command. So the importance of taking out the supreme leader, who's really given the, shall we say, ideological, theological backdrop for this regime that has exported terrorism, mayhem, and murder and destruction throughout the region, was very, very critical for the war effort. And I think we're seeing the results of that right now.
I appreciate your answer, Ambassador, but I just wonder, was it the U.S. or Israel who determined that that would be an Israeli strike?
I don't think you expect me actually to get into a discussion of operational planning here. This is being conducted in close collaboration, unprecedented collaboration, and the operation, all told, is going very well. We see the chaos going on right now throughout Iran. They have not been able to or refused to bury the supreme leader. They haven't chosen a successor to him. There is tensions within the IRGC. They're beginning to turn on each other. And we're beginning to see the opposition in Iran coalesce and unify. And that's really where this needs to go, and where ultimately it will go, where the people of Iran themselves will do in fact, the regime change. They'll be the boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm. President Trump saying today in an interview with Axios, Ambassador, that he wants to play a role in choosing the next leader of Iran. Is that something that Israel would join him in deciding? Is that something that will be determined by these two nations or more?
It's a little bit above my pay grade when the president intends to be involved in the choosing of the successor. I would say this, that we are working very closely together to ensure that the various opposition groups in Iran, which really that's been the key for 47 years, they haven't been able to coalesce. Were they able to coalesce earlier, they probably would have brought this regime down. Hopefully they'll be able to do it now. And if these minority groups come together, we have to remember 80% of the country opposes this regime. We have polled this extensively through our Mossad, and we know that 80% of the country opposes this regime. And we saw what happened last month when tens of thousands of people were murdered by this regime, but many millions came out to the streets. So if they coalesce and they come together and unify, there's going to be a different regime. And if we could influence that together and help them get on board with a transitional government that would ultimately move the country into a democratic process, well, that will be just a consequential, not only for Iran but for the entire region.
Can the U.S. and Israel help ensure that they are not murdered again?
I think that if we're successful in taking apart this terror infrastructure that exists under the Ayatollahs, it's not going to be simple, but we've had tremendous achievement so far. This is just the sixth day of the war, and they're left without a navy. They're left without missile launchers. They're in complete chaos. We've taken out their command centers in Tehran, their production of ballistic missiles. So I think we have a good shot at finishing this soon, and then moving into a mode of stabilization, where the opposition that comes together will indeed be safe. I think that the 80% of the population that wants to rid themselves of this heavy theological boot on their necks is going to look into the future together, collectively. I mean, after all, this is a society which is very pro-West. I mean, after the people of Israel, the Iranian people are probably the second most pro-Western society in all the Middle East. Mm-hmm. So there's great potential there. We just have to see ourselves through this very difficult period of war, and it is undoubtedly difficult any time to conduct war, but sometimes it's necessary to defeat evil, and this is one of those cases. We have to move this regime out of the Middle East to stop threatening regional security and exporting of terror.
Ambassador Leiter, in our remaining moment, there are reports that Iranian Kurdish forces based in Iraq are mobilizing armed units and prepared to enter Iran. There are separately reports that the CIA is arming them actively. Would you support their involvement? And would Israel rule out its own boots on the ground?
Again, I think the boots on the ground are really the boots of the Iranian people, these minorities that have had boots on their necks the whole time, since the Ayatollah came to power in 1979. Again, it's the Iranian people. The Kurds are one of the main minorities in Iran, of course. There are adversaries, there are Malushis, there are many others. If they come together and pick up their arms and use their boots to march on Tehran, they are going to be part of this march into the future, which will see a new Iran and a new Middle East.